I don't know very much about the way that rock star perverts like um, rejoinder their caterers when told things like, your meaninglessness has a higher sensibility to explain the cacophony of the lyric sheet. It seemed to come from what was summed up by yes, your time and its news is captured for the queen to use. Doot! And you're supposed to go hip hip for yes, yay. Um, the nonsensical non sequiturs of Peter Sinfield was they put out this thing that says death sheet, right? Like when you're 9 years old, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And when you're supposed to look up to these trashy monsters, it makes even less sense because, I mean, you're supposed to go, oh, poets starve and their children bleed and they're greedy. You're supposed to not like poets? Is that what's going on in this? And then the walrus Paul proves that Gail Burston really meant it when King Crimson said Death Seat. So it's too late, baby, now. I mean, it's all hacked together in this zone of the improbable that they have this shifty trick. When Gweiner is explained, which they cannot stand when something is explained. Oh, that gets them. Get out of my house. They stop making sense. Oh, how biblical. So, where does that lead? Why does that work? I don't really understand it personally. I think it has something to do with quality of life arguments. I may be a horse's ass, but I have a better Volvo than you. Wouldn't you rather ride in my Volvo? Wouldn't your girlfriend rather? Or something like that, I mean, it's that sort of thing. You wonder, they made it look by writing a story about me that they could sell this thing. Hamas exposed Jimmy Queerball for aching for the virgins, man. And the VA says, if, get. Do some Egypts and fly like a stork from Egypt. I don't really care for that Hamas creepy crowd. And so it compromises my ability to do anything defensive of Gaza, but the horror show of the Israelis speaks for itself. The Gazans or Palestinians are obviously victims, but they're a sales pitch for the Second Amendment export scene, right? Israel made sure they got the guns they needed to be braggadocio towards, the Israelis have a Hannibal doctrine that they consider their own people somewhat expendable if the payoff is big enough. They certainly see Americans as expendable if the payoff is big enough. So where does that leave anything remotely resembling the truth? I used to play patty cake with my sister. And the two of us, I'm not going to lie to you when I say this, the Seattle people are going to jump up on their hassocks and go, we win, we win. But we'd say the spades go two lips together, tie them. None of us, it was just a rock song there to us. We didn't connect it with anything to do in our minds with black people. And a woman freaked out and yelled at my mother, who yelled at us well, that was in Point Park, the bench where I met Zappa later. But it was just kids, it was just something we had learned in the playground. I mean, I thought the spades are on the deck of cards, right? And so it's nonsense words. We had something called the silly record. Be sure to brush your bread and go right to tea. So when I grew up, under the shadow, alarming shadow of hair in the Vietnam War, and got my brains beaten, and Liberty Avenue was selling pistols to 14-year-olds and knives that pulled open to be bludgeons. And Ronnie Zazinski was pulling one of them on me. They were stomping me on the head. And the magistrate's daughter had a friend who kept telling me she loved me and sending me bundles and bundles and bundles of Valentine's cards. And it turned out that they were from Hollywood. They were selling a big story. Well, we moved to get away from that stuff, and I just put all the kids' stuff away. I didn't ever want to think about it. I had to go to school somehow. I was deaf. And the last thing in the world I thought was that one of the perverts who had tortured me was working for Zappa and had my house monitored. I mean, I didn't think that's not the sort of thing I thought. I liked the music and stuff. I thought vaguely, cultural norms around here are a little different. It was a Jewish neighborhood. I'd heard what they'd been through. My brother is Jewish, so is one of my half sisters. The brother by nature, natural law Jewish, the sister by conversion and marriage. And her children were bat mitzvah and bar mitzvah and so on. I didn't think Greg Carl was just a mean asshole. I didn't bother with him much. I mean, I wanted to talk to him about music one time, and we wrote a lick together on the piano or something. But he was always he was a parochial burn you out snob. I mean, he was like the sort of person who Lord Cheltenham got sick of because he was so imitative of the English snobs. But at some point, I guess it was when um, Penis Gabriel sicked his Doberman on me, pretending to be a friend of mine. Her name was Amonger Harcourt, and she was making pissy, sick secret tapes of me at Carnegie Mellon with Todd Kaufman and a muck, playing them for the Society of Military Engineers and shit. Real sicko. Real sicko. And Croak Hagry Gooster was putting shadows in the pit news. But at some point, they interviewed me at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette on the subject of humanism and fundamentalism. And I got the message I was missing a lot by being deaf and not getting into schools. Because there's this thing called dialecticism. I found out my father had a book called Humanizing the School. And Zappa was supposedly a verbiage liberationist hawk. He would depreciate the value of the fundamentalists. I was getting letters from Kerr Wensville saying, I'm going to make you look bad with a left hook and a right chop. I don't remember the dude's name. It was some, and then I was supposed to play the diplomat while Zappa cornered me into unknowingly adding insult to injury to the secret tryst of the eugenic union by making a sarcastic sort. Well, I don't think it was sarcastic. I choose my words carefully. A disgusted comment barfed up from a not very carefully examined incident from my past when three much older than me slime balls put on an arrogant pornography show and told me about it. They took me to Climax One. It's one of the rare occasions where an establishment in Pittsburgh actually did its duty. They would take me into pornographic movies from the time I was 12 years old. I didn't want to go. They dragged me into them. Climax One actually wouldn't let me in, thank God. And I sat in the waiting room, scared to death that I was going to be killed by these monsters. No idea where I was or how to get home for hours and hours and hours. I was like 12 years old, right? And I heard something and made a disgusted remark. And this went to Putin. It went to Thorls. I mean, Penis Gabriel peed himself with glee. Eno was going, Fripp was calling Eno that old carrot. And he even got a pet rabbit to celebrate by. But the point I'm making is at some point I realized that the violence that was directed towards me may have been child of a humanist. And that started to go, because I knew my ear doctor, Busis, was a Holocaust survivor. So that's, Deaf, I knew there was a movie called The Silent Scream. That's, So they layer this stuff on copiously to somebody who they refuse to tell what necessary to be known. When I got into college in my 50s, I learned a whole lot that Magna Cum Thaws knew from his 20s because these people went to Harvard. I finally got into a community college when a deaf girl with sign language taught me sign language. So, Ringo Starr should be given the personal attentions of the Marines for his gall in attacking me rather than arresting Gail Burston. They're not going to try to explain any of that. They're not going to try to explain any of that at all. So, I mean, when you get to by the time you get to what Hamas pulled with the supernova, which Nosferatu was obviously in on with Sisi, the whole storyline of the fundamentalist tripartite was printed in CMU publication along with my warning that the Israelis were getting revenge for Auschwitz from 1994. And this is a holy war strategy from the non-aggression pact people. Nobody's making any of this up. Foucault met with the Iranians before he suicide bombed with the first supernova, with the AIDS attack. They had me in the Federal Emergency Management Agency Falk Medical Library as a clerk to see this devil gets his diabolical comeuppance for abortion from the Exorcist team stuff, which was made out to be like Zappa was championing the victims, but he turns an about face. No, I'm championing Reagan. And the joke's on you, queer ball. So, I mean, trying to think, it was a letter that was unopened. Gail Burstyn really took a fit. She started throwing things at me, did plates at me and stuff. Connected real hard. It was a pretty serious assault when I refused to open it. I wanted to open it in front of a judge, but I couldn't get the judge, so I opened it in front of witnesses. And it confirmed what I was concerned about, that these people, these Draculas from Britain, were in on it. Knew. Uh, Jeffman and Starr chose a guy named Starr Cynic, like arsenic. And Cynic. Greg, like Greg Carl. See, they would just. McCartney said, "That's our team, man. That's our soccer team." It's terribly disturbing. But by the time Nosferatu got Hamas to give the golden kickoff to Donald Trump's Hitler Voyaya Part 2, I knew that there was cahooters among the fundamentalists, the Russian Orthodox Church, the Iranians, the Contras. Gorbanofar was one of their names. And of course, Gore sold the AIDS attack as Earth in the balance. It's more like his estate in the balance. Because my father showed everybody what to do. You build public schools and healthcare communities, and you watch how you treat the environment, and you have school buses. And they just killed him. I mean, they let a white supremacist named Zoe represent the people, a dude who extolled Goebbels. They let him say he was the JDL and an honorary the African ancestor, bosom to the Black Panthers. Over a one-night stand, they guerrilla theatered over a Japanese crown. And this is Seattle's Public Library's checklist, checky poo, of UW dialectical ideology. And I had no concept that it was anything other than street violence that had bothered me as a child. But then I got turned on to dialectics from a Mongo Harcourt. So then they come on to me with Rosa, and I thought they were just trying to show me that they care about me or something. And finally, I got disturbed enough to go unpack those Gail Burstyn letters to try to see if there was some that explained what was going on. And sure enough, it was all from the left wing, right wing wings, super establishment that's going to mow the lawn mowers.